Crustaceans are a really weird group of little critters, but how are they represented in Pokemon? In this video, I want to look at what are the traditional traits of crustacean Pokemon and how can I make them better. To start off with, I want to look at all the crab-based Pokemon. Kingler is very much the archetypal crab Pokemon. It's not far off just being a regular crab, except I don't think most crabs can learn superpower. And it brings in a lot of the design motifs that we'd see. For one, it's a wall breaker. They're typically quite slow, but make up for this as they are able to do huge amounts of damage. Kingler has one of the best abilities in the game, Sheer Force. However, its signature move, Crab Hammer, doesn't really match up with this. Sheer Force removes all the added effects of moves in exchange for boosting their power. I think the Crab Hammer would work a lot better if it had a 50% chance to lower the opponent's defense every time you used it. Therefore, it would work with Sheer Force and be a better move in my opinion. Crustle, on the other hand, is very different. It wants to use Shell Smash and Sturdy to try and sweep the opponent. However, even with the Shell Smash boost, its speed is not very good. Speed as a stat is very binary. You only need one extra speed to outspeed the opponent. Because of this, I'd increase its speed up to 75. Therefore, when it gets that boost off, it could actually be threatening. I don't think that this is too bad because it feels like a Pokemon that just would be scuttling around all the time, so the extra speed would make sense. I'd also give it access to new moves, Crab Hammer for better coverage, and Accelerock to counter its priority weakness as it's gonna be on low health most of the time. The third crab-based Pokemon introduced was Crabominable, which is one of the ugliest Pokemon in the game. It too also doesn't have Crab Hammer, and it doesn't feel like a scuttler, so instead, I'd give it some increases to its bulk to make up for this. It also has the ability Hyper Cutter, which I really don't get because it doesn't have any claws. Instead, why not give it Slush Rush? There aren't many good snow abusers, and this would help patch up its really bad speed. I also think it would just be a lot more helpful. However, I still don't think anyone would use it because it looks awful. The final crab suffers a lot. Cloth has really bad stats and really awkward abilities for those stat spreads. It needs a buff in what it's good at, physical attack and defense, with maybe a minor buff for speed because it too feels like it would scuttle about all the time. But it needs some better moves. Give it Crab Hammer like I would do with every crab, as well as Accelerock, Earthquake and Shell Smash, which I'm amazed it doesn't have already. They just give it a lot more utility and more threat. If you've gotten this far in the video, please consider liking or subscribing. As a really small channel, every interaction is really important to me, so thank you. Crabs obviously aren't the only crustaceans though. Crawdaunt is the best crustacean-based Pokemon. It is the archetype of the wall breaker. With Crawdaunt, you just have to pick in which way are you going to hurt your opponents. It only ever runs stab moves because of adaptability, as well as either Swords Dance or Dragon Dance based on if you're breaking or sweeping. Crawdaunt is such a well-designed Pokemon, and it's my personal favourite Pokemon. It just hits really hard, and that's all it does. Clawitzer is the most unique of all of the crustacean Pokemon. This is because it's the only special attacker. However, like most crustaceans, it has the same weaknesses. It's really slow. I think that the only way to remedy this would be to take it up to 70. But I'd also want to increase that special attack to really over the top levels. If you took it to 135, with Mega Launcher, its attacks would be massive, and it wouldn't be outclassed by the many other special water types. Barbaracle is another very good crustacean Pokemon. It has access to Shell Smash and Tough Claws, which is a great combination for being a really good sweeper. It should put all those limbs to good use though. It should have Close Combat and Ice Punch as good options for coverage. I think with these two moves, it could become a really good threat. The weirdest of all the crustaceans is Gallisopod, and if you don't like bugs, please do not look up what Gallisopod is based off, it's terrifying. It's also the most unique in-game. It's all about switching, and I don't want to change this mechanic. Instead, why does it not already have U-turn? It's a Pokemon based around switching, it's a bug type, it's got really high attack, it should have U-turn. I'd also slightly buff its speed, but I don't think it needs it because it already has a really high base stat total. Overall, that's all the changes that I would give to crustaceans. I really like looking at Pokemon and grouping them by design and origin. If you'd like to see more, please let me know, and I'll look into other categories of Pokemon that I can look to buff.